Hello, welcome back to It's an Inside Job podcast. I'm your host, Jason Lim. Now, this podcast is dedicated to helping you to help yourself and others to become more mentally and emotionally resilient so you can be better at bouncing back from life's inevitable setbacks. Now, on It's an Inside Job, we decode the science and stories of resilience into practical advice, skills, and strategies that you can use to impact your life and those around you. Now, with that said, let's slip into the stream. Well, welcome back to It's an Inside Job. I'm your host, Jason Lim. This week, I have a special guest all the way from LA, Barnet Bain. Now, Barnet is a filmmaker, educator, and executive coach, and is the author of The Book of Doing and Being, Rediscovering Creativity in Life, Love, and Work. Now, some of his select film work includes Oscar winner What Dreams May Come, where he was the producer, and it starred Robin Williams. Another film where he was director was Milton Secrets, starring Donald Sutherland, which was based on the novelette by Eckhart Tolle. Along with his other accolades is also the Emmy Award nominee for Outstanding TV Movie, Homeless to Harvard, where he was the executive producer. He also consults and trains business leaders and private clients who are committed to high performance. So in today's episode, Barnet and we have a long-form discussion about narratives and how narratives play in our lives. We also talk about the ability and capability of letting go of the attachment we have to certain narratives, especially narratives that hold us back. But in order to do this, we need to step outside our bubble of story. And that requires awareness, the ability to step out and have an objective perspective of the narratives that we cling to. And if we can let go, we can redefine the narratives that define who we are. And this is especially important when life is moving at us so fast and changes are so rapid. Barnet says from his experience to build resilience and equanimity and to keep our well-being and to improve our well-being, well, that means we're going to have to make friends. We will need to rewrite the story so they are much more flexible and fluid. This was a fascinating conversation I had with Barnet, and we explored many different nuances of narratives and stories. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. So without further ado, let's slip into the stream and meet Barnet Bain. Hey Barnet, welcome to the show. Could we kick off our conversation by you introducing who you are and what you're doing at the moment?
I'm a teacher, a filmmaker, a writer. I've just finished a new book that's just gone off to publishers called How to Be a Friend. I'm writing a new film based on a classic bestseller called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, new romantic comedy. I speak with friends and leaders as a pal and often as a coach, leadership coach. Right. And I enjoy these kinds of conversations, so I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, I'm curious. As an executive coach, as a writer, as a director, and sort of the Renaissance man, it sounds like you are. How important is the idea of story in someone's life, whether it is creating a fictional character or someone you're coaching, or for yourself when met with uncertainty or the unexpected?
So, look, in the world of logic and reason, in the world that we all inhabit, the lingua franca of our existence is narratives. It's stories. Narratives are a developmental occurrence. So often people, they ask me, as we evolve post-psychologically, as we evolve spiritually, what might be the next, what is the next iteration of stories? And I certainly don't have any more answers than anybody else. But my deepest instinct and intuition is that there is a post storying experience. For example, even in our dream state, our notion of storying and narrative is very, very loosey-goosey. It's very flexible. Mm-hmm. We, in the waking state, afterwards, we can look at our dreams and we can extract certain kind of symbols, and then post-experience, we string together those little beads of symbol, and we interpret out of our past, our drive of experiences. We lay on meaning, and we string together these unrelated data points into something called a narrative, which is designed to serve as an explanation, to piece together the logic and reason of the circumstance in which we're living. We use it to make sense of ourselves. It is sound and fury, signifying nothing. But when we are living inside the bubble of story that we create for ourselves, it assumes a reality. It assumes it grounds itself. We live inside that experience. So it's important to know that our story-making apparatus, another way of approaching that is our psychological cat's cradle of if then, if then, if then. In the East, this is called karma. If then, if then, if then. I string this together, and I live inside it. My narrative bubble and your narrative bubble have almost nothing to do with each other. There is a certain kind of then overlay in which we pretend that we're all living in the same experience. We're not. As we come to understand that, there's a certain kind of freedom. There's also a certain kind of grief that happens. My attachment to the way it is being challenged and is being pulled apart. There's a certain kind of grief that happens to that. There's also a freedom that comes with it. And there's a sense of compassion and understanding. We realize I am living in dream stuff. Just as surely as I can become lucid in my night dreams, I begin to become a lucid liver. And I begin to take my narratives and my stories, I take them a little less seriously. I don't give them up altogether, but I take them a little less seriously. They are not as entrenched. We are not living in a dogma of facts. This is the way it is. It gives us a certain ability to mature our relationship with life itself. And for those that are seeking to make a friend of uncertainty, this kind of flexibility that happens, this kind of pliability that happens when we allow our narratives to become looser, I see it as a big soap bubble. You know how they...
Yes.
When we first take responsibility for our narratives, they're ours and they're built out of our psychological experience. We assemble them. First, they're inherited. They're the life we're given by the caste that we grow up with, their values, their circumstances. They show up. We are born into a situation, and it's almost like walking onto a set. Everybody has the hair and makeup. They all play their parts, and we come in innocent, and we soak it all up like a sponge. We either soak it up in alignment, or we soak it up with a lot of resistance. We are still at the effect of a narrative that has been given to us. And then there's a second kind of life, which is the life we create. There's a life we're given and the life we create. That's the one that happens when we realize, wow, nothing about me is original with me. That's a big moment. When you let in, nothing about me is original with me. When I had that insight, I realized that's perhaps the first original thought I ever had. It's all a circumstance of what I call structured imagination. Imagination is a worldview that is received through our families and our cultural traditions and our political environment and our social environment, entertainment environment, our academic environment. We're molded by it. Inside of it, inside that narrative structure, we pretend we have free will and that we have agency. We push back on it. We define it. We try and crush it. We try whatever we are trying to make of our lives. We're making inside a structure that has already been preconditioned. So I refer to all of this because I think it is important for us as we get into more and more the world seems to be filled with chaos and mayhem. The overarching shared stories are breaking down. There are many reasons for it. You don't have to get off onto those. There are many reasons for it. Our listeners can imagine for themselves many of these reasons and attribute many of these reasons. But it is important for us in order to become more comfortable with uncertainty, to understand that uncertainty is the higher order of things. It is the higher order of things. It is the condition which itself, when modified, reduces to something highly structured in which we live.
And that's what the narrative helps us. Because one thing you said, I don't know if it was an epiphany per se for you, but nothing I am is original with me. Or you said it a little more eloquent. I mean, what was that? I know you don't like traipsing back into the past, but I'm curious. Can you recall what it was that allowed you to have that epiphany? Was it some sort of experience that allowed you to think, okay, my narrative's not original. My narrative is it
wasn't anything that occurred as a Saul on the road to Tarsus. It wasn't any big moment that occurred. It was the product of many years of inquiry into the nature of psychology and a post-psychological reality. What was that? And then eventually it occurred to me that all of my thoughts and beliefs, all of my choices, my decisions, my attitudes, my feelings are the product of something that was seeded in me that I either was attracted to or repelled by. Nevertheless, I'm reacting to it. So none of it is original with me. It was a slow sunrise.
Evolution?
It's a slow sunrise. It's just a matter of like maturing into an understanding of all of my values are either something I learned or something that I'm rebelling against. Same thing. And my affection for structure and for the comfort zone is a narrative. The comfort zone is a narrative. When this happens, this happens, this happens. When my challenges do not exceed the discomfort zone, I call that happy. And all of the code, the source code that goes into the happy recipe, that's my narrative. That's a narrative. I have a story about it. I learn that story. At night in my dream states, much of that story becomes very flexible, as I alluded to earlier. Some of it occasionally entirely disappears. I still have awareness. I'm still aware. I am aware, and yet I am not as identified with my narrative. Looping back to a point I brought up earlier, sometimes people ask me, well, what is the next iteration of narrative? Well, I really don't think there is one. I think as we evolve post-psychologically and spiritually, eventually, it is not about if this, then that. It's not about these brittle little stories, and I don't mean little in I'm not trying to belittle it in any way. This is the nature of what it is to live in a very dense time-based experience as opposed to a more loose dream-like experience. But as we can see, as life develops and the world goes on, we have to make ourselves, we have to develop in ourselves the capacity to recognize life as a lucid living if we are going to have a healthy relationship with uncertainty. When things move slowly, our stories and narratives about it become more rigid. They don't have to have the same flexibility because nothing changes very quickly. But in an era where everything changes and things seem to be ever more discontinuous, we're going to be pushed into reassessing our relationship, our commitment to stories, and we're going to want to understand where those stories come from. Why my ego is vested in my money, status, power, identity, and what it takes to hold it in place.
So, Barnet, would you say that, over the years that you've been in the industry and the complexity of that industries and the different personalities and the egos and just the complexities of what you work with, would you say it's very important for you to be cognizant for you to be present of these narratives, regardless of where, if then? Because you were speaking, the reason I asked that question is that you were talking about sort of the resources you have, external or internal resources, versus the demands of the situation. And though it sounded like if you were cognizant or aware of the resources, so if you say to yourself, I have enough resources to demand with this crazy demands of this situation. And then thus that narrative fuels you with the confidence or the motivation or the equanimity to deal with the complexity of that situation. Because also, on the other hand, we could also tell ourselves, demands of the situation far outweigh my resources. That may be external, such as money and effort, or that could be internal with my own mind talk or my own internal self-esteem. It's a very convoluted question, but are you cognizant to the stories that you tell yourself when facing with demanding situations?
Not always, but more and more often. I'm not always able to be in the moment present enough to be aware of what is the narrative that is running, what is my self-talk. My self-talk is very consistent. It is always a running narrative, a color commentary. It's like the color commentary at Wimbledon. This is happening. This is happening. This is constant. Yeah. And then I have another. It's like I have a panel of self-talk. There's that one, and then I also have the other color commentary, which is comparing and contrasting. Do I like this? Do I not like this? This is better. This is less. Those two aspects, I believe, I've never heard anyone speak of an aspect of self-talk that is not covered by the narrative, by the narrator, and the competitor judge. That's the self-talk. And so at this point in my life, I'm quite aware of my self-talk. My narrator only does one thing, reports, and the competitor judge only does one thing. It assesses what my preferences are and how I feel about myself relative to a situation. There is nothing new at this point. And so when I look back to saying I had an understanding, an awareness that nothing original with me exists, that's the first one. So that's a loop, and it's boring because it means I have to live inside it. If I don't know it's happening, I'm living inside it. It's a condition. This is the lane that I'm driving forever. And I bring it to every situation. And so it's not like I need to know every single piece of psychological development. This happened to me, and therefore there's value in that. There's value in that. You're a therapist. I have history as a therapist. There's value in it.
Mm.
There's not ultimate value.
Mm.
There's value in it and there's about 6 months of value in that, in that exploration. That is not the pot of gold.
Mm.
It is that'll distract you for a lifetime. But what's valuable is this is the lane. I'm in this lane. I bring this lane with me. And one guardrail is a commentary. The other guardrail is how does it affect me? Now, we might be, depending on developmentally where we are in our lives and what the circumstances that we're met, whether I'm running a company, whether I'm running a movie. As a film director or producer, I am the CEO and the C-suite of an organization that has large financial stakes, manages a very, very large team, and has a hard deliverable. Mm-hmm. If I have a distribution window at such and such a time, it's not like I get to miss it or push it. Mm-hmm. You're going to deliver it, or you never work again. Mm-hmm. So, I'm aware of what the lane is and what are the bumpers on either side. And I also take them with a grain of salt. I'm aware that everybody I'm dealing with is operating in that. I have an insight that, yes, they're operating in there, and they, for the most part, either unaware of the subtext that's running them, the old injuries, the old trauma that are still running them. They may be unaware. Sometimes they are aware, but I'm aware that that's what is going on. I can recognize that. And this is not a special skill. This is a teachable skill. You can learn that. You learn that about yourself. Once you see it in yourself, it becomes apparent in everyone. Mm-hmm. So these are skills, and they serve one to be more effective as a leader. You can't lead until you can only lead to the extent that you're able to know yourself. Otherwise, you're projecting on everyone.
Well said. Mm.
So this serves one as a leader, and it serves one to maintain some equanimity in the face of chaos. Mm. Mm. Because you can take with a grain of salt. The narrator has no idea what is really happening, has a story about it. You can take with a grain of salt the competitor, because I'm not playing that game anymore. I'm an adult. That is an adolescent psychological pattern. Where am I in the social hierarchy? Where am I in? This is an adolescent. Eventually, we tire of it. We grow out of it. If we haven't grown out of it, it's fine too. There's no judgment implied here, but that is a cognitive and post-cognitive and spiritual evolutionary developmental process. Eventually, you grow out of it. And if you don't grow out of it, you'll reach a point in your life when things start fading away, people you love and care for start passing away, and you will be grown out of it. You're either grown out of it or you're thrown out of it. It helps to take responsibility before you're thrown out of it.
I think that's a very salient point. Sorry to cut in there, Barnet, because I understand. I concur with you with like the 6 months of therapy kind of thing, because I think a lot of people kind of jump back and thinking, okay, what caused the narrative? For me, I've always been of the school of thought that it doesn't matter what caused it, because it's in the past. You can't really change it. There's nothing that you can do technology-wise right now. But what you can do is understand how that narrative is preventing you from moving forward. Like, as you said, you can either grow up and be cognizant as to how it limits you from progressing, whatever, spiritually, psychologically, financially, physically, whatever, or you're forced through time to move on. But I think it's what you're saying is so important, is to step back. You said the bubble of the story. And sometimes we get so subjectively involved in that bubble, and that bubble can be a storm. We get so caught up in that maelstrom, that tempest, that we lose ourselves, that we believe every bloody narrative coming from our brain is the truth. And so we follow it down the rabbit hole, and there we are in a war and a maze. But I think what you said, and not so many words, but you said it much more eloquently, but it's to step out of the bubble, to have that objective perspective of the subjective storm, to understand that narrative. Again, back to what you said between resources and demands. And it's what is the narrative you want to sign? Can you deal with the situation, or is the situation going to sink you?
Exactly. And if you're identified in a way that you have a story about the situation that is rigid, it will sink you. If it doesn't sink you today, an iteration of it will sink you next month. So narratives are templates. I'll talk in movie terms.
Yeah,
a narrative
please.
is an outline for a script. So if you, until one recognizes the template, it will occur and reoccur and reoccur and reoccur. It'll have a new cast, they'll have new hair, they'll have new makeup. The situation will appear different. It'll be at the code level the same thing. Because we don't have that many stories. We have an overarching story.
Battery recharge.
We don't have that many. We have an overarching story, and it has certain
battery recharge.
My goodness, what is this?
Power off.
That'll help.
There you Someone's trying to tell you a story there, Barnet.
This is exactly right. It's perfect. Yeah. So we have an overarching worldview. It has a certain kind of their complexities. Again, it's a script. There are certain kind of propensities we have, and certain kind of triggers, and certain kind of resistances, and this falls squarely in the realm of psychological investigation. That's your 6 months. So you suddenly become hip to the boundary. Oh, this is a script. Now, if I taught the script, who am I? There comes the birth of humility. If I toss the script, who am I? My better thans, they go. My less thans, they go. Now who am I?
As Barnet so eloquently said, if we can let go of our limiting narratives, well, then this is the birth of humility. And it is this awareness, this humbleness, that those narratives that we've clinged on for so long that have defined who we are, well, it's the ability to let them go, to release them. And in a world of rapid change, we have the ability and capability of finding new narratives that work for us, that are flexible and fluid and allow us to adapt and find resolve and resilience. Barnet also said that freedom comes from knowing the parts of the narrative we create are not based on facts, which gives us the ability to mature our relationship with life itself. And in turn, this allows us to be comfortable to some degree within uncertainty, to find the centeredness and to find the stability within the fluctuation of change. And to have a healthy relationship with uncertainty, well, we have to develop the capacity within us to recognize that we need to loosen the constraints of our narrative. And as Barnet said, this is especially important when in an era of life, it's moving so fast and the changes are coming at us so rapidly. And a lot of the overarching stories that we are used to, well, they seem even more discontinuous. So now let's slip back into the stream with part 2 with my brilliant conversation with Barnet Bain.
Imagine a character is walking down the road and gets hit by a bolt of lightning and wakes up, and they don't have language, they don't have memory, they don't have what is the one thing they have? They have awareness. So they may have a tabula rasa, wiped clean. They have an awareness. You know, an ant outside my office has an awareness. I don't know what kind of cognitive process or nervous system it has. Not even talking about that. Just pure awareness. There's sky across which scutter clouds and weather systems. Now we're talking about thoughts. But there is a pure awareness, modifications of which show up as structure. But the structure itself is awareness. It's just condensed and modified. So when we begin to just put the lights on, when we begin to just open the door for an awareness of that, it doesn't have to be a deep, abiding, intimate relationship, just an awareness of it. Wow, there's something that is the container for all of my thoughts and feelings and decisions. It's playing out in what? Now I have a relationship with what is the one thing that is abiding, the one thing. And it gives me the ability to weather whatever storms are playing across, whatever uncertainty there is. I am not clinging to the structure. I'm not clinging to the narrative. In various kind of more esoteric religious traditions, Buddhist traditions, you know, they refer to this as attachment. The idea is not to pretend you're oblivious to desires. The idea is to have an understanding that your desires emerge out of your stories. I have a story about myself. I need this. I have a lust for this. I have a lust for status. I have a lust for power. I have a lust for money. I have a need. I need to cover my expenses. None of this is legitimate or illegitimate. They're all stories. It's not about whether the stories are true or not true. And what is holding that? Because should any of that be blown away in a circumstance of chaos, if my beingness is blown away with it, I'm sunk. If I happen to be in a C-suite and I'm leading an organization and I'm that prone to be blown over, I'm going to take a lot of bottom line with me.
I really like what you said. That it's, you know, it's as the Eastern philosophy talks, it's the attachment. But you know, like many of us, we can get so attached or so enamored with the story, and we may not even be aware of the story we're telling us. We just
Usually
believe
we're
it.
not.
No,
Usually
exactly.
we're not.
So we follow that script, and that may be I am a victim, or I get attention because of this, and then that creates that. But I think what you said one word which really resonates with me: humility. Because experience, it could be good or bad, but it could wipe away a story. It could be a good conversation with a sparring partner or a friend, and he or she says something that blows away that narrative that you've clung on to unconsciously or consciously for so long, that you've identified, you've had attachment with it. But from that sense of that light bulb moment, that aha moment, then it's humbling. It's humility. Then you're thinking, these labels, just a label itself can be a story that you cling to, right? So
It's always a story. A label is a story.
Yeah.
I agree with you 1,000%. When we allow ourselves, you know, to me, this is a description of honor. When I honor my own beingness, when I honor Jason, I honor you by my willingness to be changed by you. Everything else is BS. It's not about novelizing. It's not about awards. I honor you if I allow you to change my narrative. And the deepest expression of honoring of a circumstance is to be changed sufficiently so that I'm in awe at what's behind my narrative. That's humility. It's not playing small. It's not being humble as a performance. It's my source code is revealed, so I can let it go. Then who I am? Well, I don't know. But now I have more strength. I have more ability to be centered. I can truly be present with whatever comes up. Do I have to have a backpack full of resources? No. It helps that I have some skills and some talents. It helps that I know how to build a fire or run a business. Helps. But that's not the key to it. A lot of people know how to run a business. They're going to get knocked down. Run a business, run a country, run a world. They're going to get knocked down.
It's inevitable.
It's going to get hairy. We're at the inflection point in the hockey stick of hairiness. It's going to get hairy. So our cultural consensus narrative, gone. Now, we don't really fully realize that it's gone yet, but wait 3 years. Gone. So if there's no such thing as an objective fact, there's no such thing as a provable narrative consensus reality, who am I? After I've finished railing and defending and blaming and asserting that my worldview is the one, who am I after we burn that, after that gets all burned off? Who am I? Who am I if I'm a teamster, a lifelong teamster, and suddenly I live in a world where everything is self-driving? Who am I? Who am I when everyone is redundant? And we're all getting some kind of stipend because the machines themselves are being taxed, and we're all getting basic. I don't know how that's going to work, but who am I if I'm not my job? Who am I? Well, I'm going to have to begin to dig and to find out what is my real essence and value. Again, we're starting to live in a dream state. This is the nature of a dream state. Nobody wakes up inside a dream state and says, I'm a film director. Yeah? And when was the last time you cashed a paycheck in your dream state? Or you checked your bank balance?
That's a salient point.
fundamental narrative shift. The narratives we have around ourselves, prepare to be unhooked from them. This is the cart that is being unhooked from the horse. Prepare to be unhooked from all of that. Who are you?
I guess that's the everlasting question that's being echoed through the eons, right? All the way.
Well, it's been echoed through the eons, true, but it won't be eons before we're all confronted with it. It'll be 36 months, 48 months, 60 months. It's not going to be more than that. It's not just a rhetorical question anymore. Who are you if all of your banking is wiped out by a hacker? Who are you? I'm not trying to seed awfulizing stories. But who are you when all of this happens, whether it's nefarious or just the march of progress? Who are you?
And I think that's a really good question to ask. And as you said, it may be rhetorical right now, but within 36, 48 months, it may be a real question. And it's like, what do you want to do, right? Because I think there's multiple, again, this is just my layman's perspective, but I think there's multiple narratives that define who we are as Jason or as Barnet, right? It could be financially, it could be physically, spiritually, emotionally, professionally, whatever line it is. But I think it comes back to something you said about, part of your self-talk is comparing and contrasting. And that comparing and contrasting with others, with the world, with events, with past experiences, what have you, with expectations, is constantly redefining who you are. Like the man I'm talking to now at the beginning of the hour, you and I will be slightly, maybe only at a molecular level, slightly different than the men who started this conversation, because we've had an experience, an exchange of ideas and philosophies.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. Our notion of narratives and structures, ipso facto, they are going to dissolve most of the bulwarks of our story about ourselves. They're going to dissolve. Even all our psychological stuff. It's going to be irrelevant really soon. Really soon. So when we talk about resilience, generally when people talk to me about resilience, or when I'm working with a client who has issues with looking to become more resilient in their companies and in their leadership, generally they're talking about, I want to be resilient, like I want to be able to bounce back inside the frame that I already know. You're missing the point. It's like this. You go get an MBA if you want to learn how to jump back inside the frame you already know. The frame you already know is already history. Get ready for that. Get ready for that. Now, you can be a fundamentalist and hang on to the past, and we're going to see more and more of that. We've seen it for quite a while. You can hang on to either to the Middle Ages if you're in one culture. You can hang on to the 50s if you're in another culture. You can hang on to 1939 if you're in the United States right now, half the country.
Well, it could even just be individual when we talk about the good old days, right? That exactly. You don't think that there's no new narratives, there's nothing new experience. So you go back into the past and want to relive those whatever.
Well, there is a new narrative. There is a new narrative, and the bumper that is doing the competing and comparing. I like that one better. Christmas was better, and there's only 3 channels on television, and I like that much better. It's less
no doom scrolling. Yeah,
no doom scrolling, and we have stories about it. Those stories are, I will compare and compete along with my narratives. I'm right in my lane. So to be resilient inside a frame that you are not challenging, that is called control. That's not resilience. That's control. Give me some new control tips. There are plenty. But they're not abiding, because at some point, and in real time we see it. And if you don't see it, just age. You'll see it in your life. Right? I'm a surfer. So I go out there not long ago, and there's a wave, and I go to pop up, and I go, pop up, and I don't. My body will not do it. Pop up. I'm still And so I go, whoa, when did that happen? Well, it just happened now.
It sounds like you're clocking around the same age as I am.
Just happened now. So, how are you going to be around that?
Yeah.
We can go to the gym. I'm going to bulk up. Okay, so maybe I'll get a little more. Maybe I'll wring out another 4 months, 6 months. This is, but it's systemic. This is systemic across everything and happening fast. So resilience is not about what do I find, what strategy can I drag out of my MBA or whatever it is, or my mentors, what strategy can I drag out in order to meet the challenges of a world becoming new? Well, the world is becoming new, so your strategy better be new too. And
it's innovative mindset, or the moonshot.
Yeah. You stay you stay at the horizon as much as you possibly can. But even in the moonshot mentality is still about audacious goals and big risks, and it'll serve us. But it is not going to it'll serve us. It is a vast improvement over the business as usual model, vast iteration. But it will not handle your well-being when my ability to do moonshots, my ability to use all the tech and all the advances in order to up-level my system, bots and nanobots. I mean, whatever, it will not ultimately, yes, it's going to bring me farther along, but it will not support me when I hit the vanishing point.
So let me ask you this, Barnet. You've been in the film industry for maybe score plus years.
Yeah.
You've seen how it's evolved and it's changed, and now you see how AI is coming. You can see how machine technology and everything else that comes with it. I mean, how do you see yourself, in that 36, 48 month, if we can just use that as a time frame? How do you see yourself evolving when you talk about humility, attachment, the bubble in the story, comparison, contrast? How do you see your narrative evolving or in this iterative process? I know this is a little bit of a shot in the dark kind of question.
No, it's a great question. It's a really great question. It's a question that I've been leaning into for quite a while now. So I hold my identity. Mm-hmm. I'll step back first. When I was a young man, I had lots of vanity around my work. A lot of vanity, a lot of egoic feedback, and a lot of ego gratification around it. Mm-hmm. As I got a little older, a little more mature, things began to change, and eventually I grew into a place where it was fun. I did it for fun. I did it as a backdrop for other things that I do. Psychological and spiritual growth. It's an arena in which I get to do a show and tell. Here's how you lead a team. I'm self-learning. Here's what it looks like to model leadership for a team. So it began to move from what can I get to what can I give? Where am I going as opposed to where have I been? What can I learn more than what can I reaffirm? That's a developmental thing. Now, I'm at a place where I realize, well, why do I do all that? It gives me joy. It's fun. Am I a messianic figure? No. I'm not doing it to save the world. It's fun. Why does a bird sing? It's not doing it to perform for everybody. It's what it does, and we enjoy it.
Well said.
I do it because it's what I do, and I enjoy it. And does it benefit people? I certainly hope so. So now I look at myself and I think, okay, I'm like a bird that's singing. If the song if it's no longer available to me to either pop up on a surfboard or sing the song, or if there's no ability anymore with AI and all these other things to make films, to do that, what is my bottom line? I've always done it, or I grew to do it for the joy of doing it. Where else can I find joy? I am prepared. I'm prepared to allow life itself to deliver me other opportunities to sing that song and find joy. If I cling, no, it has to be the making of films. Well, that's already gone. There's all kinds of films on my shelf I want to make that I can't make. As it happens, I'm making now. I realize there's only an appetite for films that are pre-sold, pre-branded, worldwide IP. So I'm making a film about men are from Mars, women are from Venus. It'll be fun. It's going to be great. I'm going to enjoy it. But the reason everything else being equal, that is one that can still be made. Most of the other ones can no longer be made. There's no way to market them. There's no way to. So I see the converging of the restrictions and the constrictions and the challenges that are in my business. And I'll keep doing it for as long as I keep doing it. And then at some point, if and when I can no longer do it, or there's no longer a doing this there anymore, if AI is just doing it, I'll find something else. I have a relationship with a core self that underlies why I do what I do. Now, if it comes to like making a living, that's a more complicated piece of business. If it comes to, I have financial issues, or somebody says to me, and I have financial issues, and I have a family, and I have expenses, and then if suddenly that is removed from me, it's not just an egoic thing; it's a practical thing. The resilience that is required there to get back up on your feet is a little more complicated, but the model is the same. You still have to have a sense of equanimity. You have to have a sense of, these pressures are a condition of the story I tell. If the conditions change so much and I can maintain equanimity, if I fall apart, I will make choices and decisions that do not serve me. But if there's that wonderful Kipling poem about if you can keep your head while all about you, they're losing theirs, then I will have the resources the internal resources, and possibly the skill set, but the internal groundedness to show up and re-engage with the new circumstance and deliver my value to the circumstance in a way that reciprocates with financial. I wouldn't go as far as say security, because there is no such thing as security anymore. There is only the ability to be in relationship with the present experience. Now, I hope I haven't freaked anybody out.
But I think it has something to do with, a chapter of one of the books you wrote earlier about being and becoming, right? And I think even though you wrote it a few years ago, I think the philosophy behind that chapter is still important today. Because I think what you were saying is just that. Is that sometimes we need to be able to. I'm thinking that, someone who hires you as an executive coach or a leadership coach or what have you, they may not have the mindset for equanimity. They may not have the mindset because they're working from a lower sort of process.
They usually
level,
don't. They
right?
usually don't start.
No, and that's what I'm saying. Sometimes bringing in a professional such as yourself or whatever sparring partner can come in and where they can kick around ideas, because all of a sudden, what people they get so trapped up in their thoughts and their emotions, and those emotions and thoughts, they're abstract and they can morph and evolve in the head, Barnet. But when they have to articulate to you their emotions and their thoughts, but all of a sudden, though they are explaining it to you, it may be the first time they've actually heard their own thoughts and emotions out loud, articulated in a way, because they may say, well, Barnet, I'm stressed about this. No, actually, it's not stress. I'm a little overwhelmed. Yeah, overwhelmed. That's what it is. And they can be all over the place, but that's how they process. And this is slowly how they can find equanimity, such as finding a professional like you, because you have that objective perspective. As you said, you sit outside their bubble of narrative and you can question them, and you can question some of those. As you said, they're not facts. They're just a collection of assumptions and beliefs.
That's so well said. Yeah. And, when you sit outside somebody's bubble, you're friendly. To be effective, you're friendly, but you're not their friend. So there are hard truths. You tell somebody, that is a fabrication that exists only in your thinking. Now, there's a lot of battle that goes on when somebody defends their thinking. There's a lot of battle and it's not always pretty until they come to the understanding that you don't believe everything that's in your head. Just because in your head doesn't make it so. And that one's entire life is a construct of your thoughts. And if you live inside of there, you can be comfortable until you're not. You'll outgrow it. And what does it look like to outgrow it? Problems is what it looks like. Crisis, calamity. That's what it looks like. And people invariably defend their thought bubbles as being real. And this is the circumstance, and this is the situation, and this is the condition. And, here's my psychologist that I went to, or my therapist I went to for 20 years. And eventually the thought bubble, the narrative has to be punctured.
And hopefully it's you who takes the active choice to puncture that narrative and maybe...
Yes, you don't want it to flatten. You don't want it to flatten you, and you don't want it to flatten your organization. You don't want it to flatten your family. You don't want it to... You want to be proactive. And you want to come to an understanding that you have a bunch of stories, and those stories create an environment, and you live in the environment.
Very well said.
I used to have one of these little globes, and you shake it and it has snow in it. You know those things?
Yeah, snow globes. Yeah.
You live in that.
Yeah, we're both from Canada, right?
We all live in, yes, I'm also from Canada. We all live in that. Sometimes it's a snow globe, sometimes it's a sun globe.
Yeah.
But we all live in that. In order to be resilient, in order to have the steadfastness, in order to meet the challenges of a world rapidly becoming new, we have to understand that, so that even if the context entirely changes, and it will, I know who I am. And so I show up in the new context. If I'm going to get blown away along with the context, as too many sadly will, that's not what resilience is. Resilience is, again, resilience is not about, I got knocked down today, I got back up on my horse. That's not resilience. That's beautiful, but it's a different thing. We're not talking about that. We're talking about being lucid and being aware of what are my thoughts, what are my stories, what are my habits, what are my conditioned thinking, what would I normally do, why? Where did I learn that? Did I learn that at business school? Did I learn that from my mother? Did I learn that from my great uncle? Did I learn that from the school of hard knocks? What does that have to do with now? Nothing.
As you said, it's almost the soap bubble at the top of our conversation, right?
Yeah.
Barnet, we're coming close to the top of the hour, and I'm very respectful. Was there any last advice or suggestions you would like to leave with our listeners today?
Oh, my goodness. I'm frequently asked a similar kind of question, and I don't have a wrap-up statement, or I'll say it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time to be alive. It's not always a fun time, but it is kind of a thrilling high wire act on a daily basis to have one's assumptions challenged, and to notice, oh, I have a big reaction to this, or a big reaction to that, or I have a big emotional hit to this, or I have a big judgment about that. And it happens at such a pace, at a pace that has never occurred at this pace before. So I'll leave with simply, if we can be aware, if we're willing to take stock of that and to notice the degree to which we are narrating and judging and competing, comparing, and having this is good, this is bad. It's a big leg up. It's a huge leg up. It's going to be one of the more valuable resources that one can have going forward, is the ability to know what is going on in you.
Thank you very much today, Barnet, for a brilliant and very in-depth conversation. I've got a lot of food for thought.
A lot of fun, and really a pleasure being with you, Jason. Thank you for the invitation.
As Barnet said, we live in the constraints of our own thoughts and beliefs, but eventually we grow out of it, whether we take action to do it or circumstance does it for us. In Barnet's case, this story has evolved from what can I get to what can I give? Where am I going as opposed to where have I been? And also what can I learn more than what can I reaffirm? As Barnet also said, he said resilience is the ability and capability to adapt our stories to the ever-changing landscape, and it requires awareness and humility to know that we live within our stories. Well, folks, that was the Oscar winner, producer and director and author, Barnet Bain. Barnet, a personal thank you from me to you for spending some time with me today to share your thoughts and narratives. I've learned a lot, and as I said at the end of our conversation, you've left me with a lot of food for thought. So thank you very much. Folks, I will leave all Barnet's contact information in the show notes. As usual, let me know what you think. And if you think this episode or the podcast itself could benefit someone, please share it with 2 friends, 2 colleagues, and 2 family members. And until the next time we speak, the next time we continue this conversation, keep well, keep strong, and we'll speak soon.